I'll tell you right now that I'm going in the lake.
That's it. But would you stop swimming, or can you go while you're swimming? And we can make a podcast out
I mean,
of
I
this
think
if
you
want.
practice it in the pool first, right? If you,
That's awesome.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Bing slouches.
Today on the couch, we have Francisco. Such a fun name to say.
I've heard that.
We got Francisco Alatorre on the couch today. We're going to be talking about your season, a little bit about you, all the crazy crap that you get into. But first, I'm Coach Dale Sanford.
I am Coach Bryant Funston. We are the co-founders of BPC Performance Coaching, where we specialize in helping time-crunched athletes optimize their busy schedules so they can maximize their athletic performance. You can find out more about BPC by going to buildpeakcompete.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube at Build Peak Compete, and all up on that Instagram at BPC Performance. And now I don't need the iPad anymore.
There you go.
Bam.
Done.
So I'm going to inflate your ego a little bit here.
Thank you.
Keep it going.
So one thing I love about Francisco is that he seems to, I don't know, like what's going on up here, but seems to have done a really good job at finding a balance of training for high performance, but also still having fun. So you do tend to pick some crazy challenge, Ironmans and whatnots are not enough anymore. It's like you got to go a little further each time. But when a day may not go as planned, you seem to still find a way to have fun with the day. I wish I had the picture from Memphis 70.3, but I do have a picture that you're not going to see, which is you cheering on everyone at the St. Jude Marathon. So Francisco, he strikes a great balance of having fun and training for high performance. So he's been a joy to coach up to this point. We'll see what you throw at us next time.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and specifically kind of your background in sports and how you got into endurance sports?
Sure. I was a swimmer before I was anything else. I was a swimmer in high school, even before high school. As a matter of fact, I was a swimmer in Mexico, where I grew up. Then joined the Air Force, went to college, got married, had children. Everything went on hold until my oldest in kindergarten asked me to go with her to school in a bike. And so I went to Walmart, bought a bike, and that's how it all started, which, by the way, the kindergarten was about 3 blocks from my house, and I struggled on the bike making it there. But that was the beginning to me realizing I have some challenges. I can't even take my daughter to kindergarten on the bike. And so I started cycling. This was in Florida. I used to live in Florida.
Okay.
And
You mentioned that you'd done your first triathlon back in like 1985.
That's right.
When it was like pretty new,
Yes.
a new sport in the U.S. Tell us a little bit about that
So
adventure.
I went to school in a town called Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
I went to school taught by aliens. That was a joke. So yes, I was a swimmer at the school, and our coach had just heard about this thing called triathlons. And they were having the very first triathlon, actually was the second year, they were having the triathlon in town in Roswell, New Mexico, called Bottomless Triathlon. It's at Bottomless Lake, so that's the name of it.
Okay.
And all the swim team had to sign up. I I knew how to ride a bike. I didn't know what a road bike was. I didn't know what shifting meant. I think I rode the whole time in one single gear.
Yeah.
And there was a hill that I didn't know how to shift and couldn't go up the hill, so I actually had to get off the bike. So I was the second out of the water, but I couldn't bike, so I lost my position from the bike. And then, of course, we had to run. Back then, the transitions... You went and sat down, you finished swimming, you sat down in a tent, and you completely changed clothes, dried up. I had a towel. Oh, and now I have to go and bike. And we went and biked and came back, and now I have to go and run. It was so relaxed. But yeah, that was my first one.
And so you've actually gone back and done that same race several times.
Yeah.
Like how is it going back and seeing how it's changed?
So it's for me, it's nostalgic. That was my very first time doing a race, and surprisingly, to see it still running years after, since 1984 when it first started. So it was pretty cool. I actually took Meg with me. We went and raced the same lake, the same route, the same distance. Nothing has changed except for the people doing it.
Yeah,
that's great.
And it was exciting. It was really fun.
And for context, Meg is your partner in crime in all of these wacky endurance events that you guys decide to do. So, you know, you've gotten into triathlon, stayed in it. You've done what? How many Ironmans?
Finished 5. Yep.
And then several halves.
Yes.
Multiple marathons.
Yes.
We do those for fun at this point.
Yes.
Half marathons.
Pick one for your training.
Yeah. So tons and tons and tons of experience in endurance sports and triathlon and running. And so last year, you know, you kind of came to us and said that you wanted to take on a 100-mile run.
Yep.
Which, you know, prior to that, you had done what was the run that you guys did in Tennessee?
Yeah, so we had done. So a friend of Meg introduced us to ultra running, and the way they introduced us, they invited us to go and do it was a 112-mile race from Knoxville, Tennessee to Bristol, Virginia. Okay. It's all road. It's self-supported, which means you got to carry everything. There is no aid stations. There's nothing, but the window is much larger than a normal 100 ultra. So we went and did this. It actually took us 58 hours to finish it. And you know, one of the things that is important for me, I love how you said it, that I have fun. But part of having the fun is also having the right support. And you guys know this, how important it is to have the right support at home
100%.
that understands what you're wanting to do, what you're wanting to accomplish. Having that at home, I have not only that support, but I also have a partner in crime that loves to train. We train together. We do all these things together until race day. Then we are no longer friends. It all comes off at that moment, and she's on her race, and I'm on mine.
It's true. Full disclosure, we coach Meg as well, and we've seen this firsthand.
So she came home one day and said, "Hey, what are you doing such and such date?" Which, as you know, to read your partners, you know what that means. You're like, here we go. And sure enough, there was this race that we wanted to do. We went with very little training and suffered a lot. But it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. We didn't think we could finish, so Meg suggested, "Hey, let's do a real ultra," and that's how Pinoti was born for us.
Okay.
Yeah. So you guys came to us to train for Pinoti for the most part. There were some other whenever Francisco and Meg come to you and they say we want to do this big event, normally there's other big events peppered in. So it's not just like you're hard focused on one thing. So you're working around a half Ironman at Memphis 70.3 or you know some other
Gulf Coast.
Yeah, other events peppered in. And when you're doing something like 100, there comes a time where you have to really focus on the running, and everything else kind of has to take a backseat. I think we did it pretty well. But the Pinoti course is wretched. It is incredibly difficult. Ups and downs, like in the dark, the really like loose rock downhills and stuff like that. I mean, that stuff will demolish even a decent trail runner. So we knew we had to like really, really prep, not just the miles. Honestly, in my opinion, for 100, the miles are far less important than getting your nutrition, your hydration, your pacing, and then preparing your body for all the downhill that you're going to end up doing. So that's kind of how we looked at it. And then I'll kind of let you kind of tell the story of how Pinoti went.
Mm-hmm. So, I did not realize the importance of nutrition. And probably that was my biggest flaw going into this. But the event, obviously, for Megan went well. She finished. I DNF'd at mile 70. I was pulled off the course. And one of the things, I have a why I do what I do. In my younger years, it used to be I like to exercise so that I can eat all the crap I like to eat. I've since moved to my new why is I'm able to do these things. There will be a day that I won't be able to do these things. That day is not today. So I'll keep going. And I'd like to keep pushing the envelope. I know I'm not going to podium. The only times I podium is when I'm the only one racing at my age group, right? So I know that. But I enjoy the journey, the training, the support, the people, and eventually the challenge of the race itself. But I didn't know what I was getting into. And I think what hurt me the most was nutrition and the descending. Not so much the ascending. The descending is what was harder.
Yeah.
The Pinoti race goes up, not that it speaks volumes, but is the highest point in the state of Alabama, which is Sheehaw Mountain. So you go all the way up and then all the way down. And the down is what hurt the most.
Yeah. So that's kind of we've said this a few times on the podcast about training for ultras. It's not the uphills. Half the time, the steep uphills, you end up hiking them anyways.
Yep.
But people get this thing in their mind that they need to make up time on the downhills, or, since it's kind of gravity assisted, I can just go. Yeah. And that eccentric load on your body is so high, and it does so much damage to your muscles that once your muscles and tendons and everything have had it, you're done for the day. So we knew we had to prepare for that, but looking back, there were definitely things that we could have added to the program, done a little bit different strength training, that sort of thing, and we did that on the second round. But every time that an athlete goes into a big event like this, especially 100, I usually put a plant in their crew, at least somebody that will send me like text message. I know you're not going to be the one texting me on the saying how you're doing and stuff. But we had Kiri. You had Kiri on the crew.
I had the best crew ever.
Best crew,
Alan Kiri.
And these are people that will tell you stuff that you don't want to hear when you don't want to hear it. And that's what you need on your crew. And so Kiri was texting me, and she's saying, he's not eating. He's not eating anymore. I'm trying to shove food in his face, and he's not taking it. And that's kind of when I knew that things were probably not going to go the way we wanted it to for the day. We also had that. We ended up having a little bit of a hamstring pull that kind of plagued us long enough. And so ultimately the day didn't go the way we wanted it to. But it literally took you about 48 hours to decide, nope, I'm not going out like that. So like immediately we decided, it took us a little while to decide which 100 to do, but we were going to pick up another one in the spring. And so we kind of recalibrated, let the hamstring heal up properly. That was a big part of it. And then we kind of reworked our strength work. We reworked our nutrition and hydration plan. And we kind of targeted Run Love It. And that's a race you're familiar with
Correct.
because you'd done the 100K
The
before.
100K before, yeah.
So it's still got some elevation to it. It's not like
It actually has more elevation than Pinoti, surprisingly, but is distributed among the entire race versus one giant mountain.
yeah,
Yep.
the one long massive climb and descent. So I think it's worth noting that you're not a huge fan of running.
I am not. Out of all three sports, that is my least favorite, and I make it known most of the time when other people are running with me.
That was the other thing we were getting from your support crew was the why am I doing this? The complaints, but ultimately you come around. The finish line is unlike any other. Especially when you're doing something epic like this, and you have to employ a team, and your whole support crew is there.
Correct.
I get chill bumps just thinking about it. So.
And honestly, yes, you're racing it for yourself, but in an event of that size, and my crew will tell you, I cried when I was pulled off the race. For one, I knew that I could finish the distance. My mental game doesn't allow me to quit. I have to be pulled off. And that's how I go into all these crazy events. But when I got pulled off, I suddenly felt that I let my team down because it's not just about me. It's everybody else behind. They've sacrificed so much to be there and help me that I failed. So it was very hard.
Definitely.
What was the nutrition? And you may end up getting into this, for the things that you changed between that one and this one, but kind of run folks through what were you eating?
So at that point, I had already learned of my favorite, which even you guys have mentioned in a previous podcast, but that is my Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
He wouldn't give up the Chick-fil-A sandwiches. But I said, okay, you can have your Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
Let me tell you.
Let's just figure out how to get some more carbs in you.
So there was a lot of different products from gels, trail mix, food at the aid stations, etc. Whatever I could grab, but I was not grabbing enough. And my team had their own. They brought food that they would prepare for me to have when I was meeting them. They would fill my pockets with food, and what they started realizing is that there was nothing to fill. That my pockets were still full from the last time they saw me. So that's how they quickly realized I was not consuming. And I think my head may have been in the race itself and not paying attention to my own nutrition. Because for the first 20, 30 miles, I don't know what they're talking about. I feel great.
It wasn't a problem until it became a big problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you hit that wall and it was...
My thinking was, okay, you're stopping and eating like a very high protein, high fat sandwich, and that's making you feel full for a long time. Yep. And so I was like, you can have the Chick-fil-A sandwich. Just make sure that you're able to put in some more gels and we have to train with it and make sure that we're getting in more than enough to power the work that we're doing. And that's one of the big things that we changed. It wasn't a major change. It was just more. We just needed more carbs.
And one of the things that I attribute the second attempt and the success of it was the putting the alarm on the phone.
Perfect. Yeah.
On my watch. Sure. Every 30 minutes it went off, and I knew every 30 minutes, drink and eat.
Yeah, that was and we tell people all the time for any distance, ultra distance race where you're going to have to be eating a decent amount, set the alarms.
Yep.
Like almost every computer that I know of has alarms on it now.
Yep.
So use them. I would say as far as the training we did differently, as far as strength work goes, we really didn't run more miles the second time around. We changed the strength work up to where you were doing a little bit more heavier lifts and then more eccentric loading. So we did a little bit more. We did some plyometric stuff, eccentric plyometrics, and just making sure that when we were doing movements like that simulated like a squat or a lunge or a step up or something like that, the down portion was very controlled and strong, because that's basically what you're doing as you run. You're constantly controlling the muscles loading more so than muscle contractions. So why not work those
Correct.
movements more than the push portion of a lift?
And truthfully, before Pinotti, all my running was on roads. All I had done, even the previous 100-miler that we did, was literally on a road on 11W West, or that's the name of the road. It's really very different running than trail running, and suddenly you're depending on different muscles that were not, in my opinion, properly trained and strength that were weak, that we adjusted for.
It's different, definitely a different load on the muscles.
Yep.
Running on the road versus the trail.
How many days a week were you doing strength, and what sort of run volume were you guys?
Oof.
It was all over the map.
Made
I
it
mean,
happen.
I would say you were constantly doing 3 days a week of strength.
Yep.
For
Okay.
sure.
Yep.
Usually it was a heavier day, either an upper body, a core, or a mobility day. And then once we got into the thick of it, that turned into that plyometric
Correct.
day. And then I would say max volume. Like we were doing what we did. So like max volume ended up being, I believe, around 15 hours of running.
Probably. Yep.
So it was about an 8-hour day on Saturday, 4-hour day on Sunday, and then a couple of like hour 15 to an hour and 30 during the week.
Those were the days I hated, Dale.
The short ones?
Oh my God. No, the long ones.
the
back-to-back long ones.
The stacked?
Yes.
Well, and
his
that's
ears
how
had to be burning. So.
they were. That's how that's how you simulate
Yeah.
long days. You accumulate a lot of fatigue one day, and then you try to perform the next day on a bunch of fatigue, and then that weekend creates a massive amount of fatigue. And then it also you have to go long enough to test your nutrition and hydration.
Correct.
Like you need to know that it's going to work 8 hours in. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't have to do like a 50-miler to train for 100, because like I just said, our max weekend was 12 hours, and it worked out great.
Perfect. Yes.
I don't believe in doing massive running loads for 100.
And we even did this on the swim too.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. It's the same principle. So we'll go there in a second, but Run Levitt ended up going really well.
Correct.
And I mean,
What was the time gap between the two?
5 months.
October, early November to February 25th.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So
Did you find it was tough to keep motivation up, or was the fire burning after
Oh,
not
the fire
completing?
was burning. I think I could feel my body needing some rest.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I developed shingles, and I didn't realize I had shingles,
geez.
and so I had back pain and nerve pain.
Yeah.
And I was pretty close at throwing the towel because pain was all over. Went to the doctor, and they said, "No, this is what you have." And
Oh, geez.
and so I was able to manage it once I knew what it was. I thought I'm falling apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fire was constantly burning.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a testament to you and your dedication.
Mm-hmm.
Is even through the crap that you've been through, the DNFs and the having to recalibrate, working through the hamstring thing, which took, I mean, for a second there, we weren't sure if we were even going to be able to have time to build for Run Levitt because the hamstring was still
Correct.
bothering you.
Yeah.
We managed to work through that and then do the build. And so real quick run through how the day at Run Levitt went.
It was terrible, actually. It
You
started.
can't put it like that.
It started at 35 degrees and raining, and it ended at 35 degrees and raining. So it was. Oh yes, and
That's as bad as it gets.
and the funny thing about that race is that it actually starts at night. And because it is a 100-miler, you actually spend 2 nights in the woods by yourself.
In the
Because
cold and the wet.
and in the wet, yes. Yes. But I mean, the event went, in my opinion, as planned. The nutrition worked. The timing.
So you're doing what? One chicken sandwich every
I think
45
I did
minutes?
2 chicken sandwiches. But yeah, everything else was dead on. If there was a lesson I learned from it, I think I was drinking too much.
Gotcha.
Because I found myself having to relieve every mile towards the end. So that was probably, I mean, if that's going to be my worst part, then I'll take it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the race was dead on.
Yeah,
And
I
it was
think
hard.
going from like training for Pinoti and having to train through the summer and just teaching yourself to drink a ton.
Yes.
And then going into this build having that same sentiment, and then we get into the race, and you're having to pee.
Yeah,
it's
pee in the
freezing
woods
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just don't need as much. But but overall, the race went really, really well.
Yes.
So we were able to check that goal off the list. And then Francisco says, "Hey, I kind of want to do a really friggin' long swim."
I want to do something that's not long running.
Well, that was exactly right.
Yeah.
What are my options?
Yes.
That was basically what he said. He's like, "I think I need to stop running for a little while." And
Guilty.
and I kind of want to do this Bridge to Bluff 10K swim. And I was like, okay, I mean, we got plenty of time. Let's do it, So we were able to take, that wasn't it. You had to, I talk like it's just like there was that event and then there was this one.
Oh, there was Gulf Coast and a marathon.
Yeah, there was, Gulf Coast 70.3 shortly thereafter, the 100, and then, then a marathon a few months later.
Right.
Yeah, and then we kind of focused in on the swim, which honestly for this swim, I didn't think we needed nearly as long of a build for the swim as we did for the 100. But what made you want to do
The swim?
long freaking swim?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I was a swimmer. I enjoy swimming. I had always competed in the pool. I'd never done open water swimming other than at an Ironman or a half Ironman or any triathlon that is at a lake. So that was my experience of open water swimming. I'm a member of Memphis Thunder, and one of our guys did a race last year. Listen to this. It's a 10-mile swim.
Ooh.
Nope.
It's on my list.
It's coming up.
I'll let you do
You're dropping it today?
I'll train you for
by
it.
the way, but so he did that, and it got me interested. But there is no way I can go from swimming a Ironman distance to 10 miles. So found this that is a little shorter. As a matter of fact, that gentleman that introduced us to the race, the 10 mile that did it last year, did it with me this past weekend as well. He's an excellent swimmer and had no problems. I think he came 4th overall. But I mean, I needed to try something different. One, I wanted to get off my legs for a while. And I thought, hey, sure, why not? Let's see where this goes, and maybe it has a new future.
Tell us about that event, just some details about the event, and then also how does that compare to, say, the environment of like a 100-miler? Yeah,
so come to find out, there is, just like in the ultra running world, there's a open water swimming world I didn't know about. I'm just having to learn about it. And there's all these races that happen all over the world, primarily in the ocean. A few in the lakes, like Tahoe, for example, has a race. But this one was in the river, and it's actually a series. There's 3 events. The second one is happening this weekend. And then there's the third one, which is the 10-miler. So there's a 10K, 10K, 5-miler, and then a 10-miler.
Okay.
And the 3 events are considered a challenge. That you get something for that.
Gotcha.
But there's events everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And I just thought it would be interesting to try something different, other than, okay, I've done a lot of running, I've done a lot of biking before, so okay, let's try swimming.
So explain a little bit about like how an open water event goes, because I'm sure there are already people thinking like, how the heck do you eat? How do you drink when you're swimming for hours on end? So explain a little bit about eating, drinking, and also the navigation part of it.
Yeah. And there's one other element too, is which was the topic of the conversation as we were getting ready to start the swim. There was 4 of us from Thunder that were doing the event, and while we're waiting for our turn to jump in, one of us turned and says, "Okay, do you pee in the lake, in the water, or do you stop? Do you do it while you're swimming, or do you stop?" And it was like, "What?" Like, well, you're going to have to go. And indeed, you do have to go. You're eating, so something has to happen, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, that was our conversation. How do you go? Do you stop? Like, one of them was like, I always go out. I always get out. I don't do it in the lake. Like, well, you won't be able to get out, so you're going to have to figure it out.
Better practice that.
Yes.
I'll tell you right now that I'm going in the lake.
That's it. But would you stop swimming, or can you go while you're swimming? And we can make a podcast out
I mean,
of
I
this
think
if
you
want.
practice it in the pool first, right?
That's awesome.
I definitely have to stop. So by the way, I've said this before on podcasts, don't ever get around me at the warm-up portion of
Race.
swim start. If I stop for any length of time,
Now you know.
I cannot swim and go.
That's funny. So the start actually, first of all, the event is put by U.S. Swimming. So it is a sanctioned event.
Okay. What kind of numbers are there?
Participant-wise, this particular one had 64 swimmers. Each swimmer has to have what they call a pilot, which is a navigator. Primary job of the pilot is, one, they keep you on a straight line, so you don't have to necessarily be sighting like you do on a triathlon. You're just following the pilot, who cannot be in front of you, can always be on your side or behind you, but can never be in front of you.
Gotcha.
Because you can draft.
Yeah.
The pilot obviously navigates, carries your food, your nutrition, and is your safety, in the fact that because we were swimming in a river, or if it was a lake, or even if it was the ocean, there's traffic. And so they become the visible point for your safety. So you have to maintain a certain distance from the kayak. However, you're not allowed to touch the kayak as a competitor. Some of the rules are that you are not allowed to, unlike on a triathlon where if you get tired, you can hold on to a kayak as long as there's no forward movement. In this case, you're not allowed to touch the kayak at all.
Okay.
So the nutrition, the pilot carries it. And what I learned from the 100-miler was that, hey, every 30 minutes worked well for me. Carry that over to this other event. And we did. Meg was my pilot, and she had her watch going at the same time as I started. And every 30 minutes on the clock, as I'm swimming, she would hold a water bottle, which was my signal, it's time to eat. And the way it works is that she would throw it in front of me. Actually, the water bottle is on a rope. So she would throw it in front of me. I would swim to it, grab it, turn on my back, float on my back while I drink. Sometimes we would put a gel next to it so that I could have more than just the fluid. Take the gel, and then I would just drop the bottles she had on the rope. She would pull it back into her kayak and keep on going.
She goes, here, fishy, fishy, fishy.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Just throw it up.
So I'm curious, do they have like, do do they have like an official going around on a boat to make sure that you?
I believe they have several officials who are going up and down the whole event. There were about 4 or 5 different markers throughout the whole distance. Because at one point we went from swimming on the left side of the river, we had to cross over and then swim on the right side of the river. So yes, there were some markers and there's traffic, obviously. And the Coast Guard is aware of this event, just like you would do an ultra or any other race, right? You notify the authorities. But there's still, you have to be careful to and respect the traffic.
Yeah, I was looking at the map from the GPS data, and the river just snakes the whole time.
Yep.
It's not a straight line by any means.
No, yeah.
So yeah, there was a decent amount of navigation going. And so when you were going through that, were you getting Meg to like cut tangents, or like was there like a definite course you had to follow?
There's a course you have to follow, and she had to maintain a certain distance from the edge of the river. The left side is deeper for whatever reason. The left side is deeper, so she had to be, I think it was 100 to 150 yards off the edge max. And so I would, wherever she went, I followed.
Gotcha.
I kept her on my left side, and wherever she would turn or she would signal me that we need to cross, and we would go. But yeah, it was about 100 to 150 feet.
So what was total time, and how much did you eat and drink?
Total time was 2 hours and 42 minutes for a 10K, 6.2.
And by the way, that's
Solid.
pretty fast.
Yeah, that thankfully we had a little bit of current on the river, so that helped. Although it slows down towards the end, and you can tell, one, you're tired, but you're swimming along, and then suddenly, oh wow, now I got to work harder.
Yeah.
and
Quicksand
you're-
here? Is this am I in a bog?
Not moving. And again, I was eating every 30 minutes.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of Hammer Nutrition.
Yeah.
And so that's what I stick to from
Okay.
gels.
Just gels, yeah.
And Heat and Fizz.
Okay.
A combination of all that. That's
Gotcha.
what I was taking in.
I was sort of envisioning the hot dog eating competition where they take the buns and stick it in the water. I was thinking the
thought
chicken
of Chick-fil-A
biscuit
came across at one point.
There was going to be a
wet bun with
we just do chicken minis. then.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the training that went into this, because there were some challenges. We don't have a lot of open water opportunity around here. Thankfully, we've started the swim program on Sunday, but you're still this year limited to basically a 500-yard triangle. Otherwise, we don't have. There's like only 2 pools in the entire county that aren't 25-yard pools. So it brought on a few challenges here. So I would say when we went into this build, basically, we went from essentially training for like a half iron distance level of swimming, where you're doing like 3 swims a week, 3,000 yards kind of is the max where most people can get it done and have enough time to get home and shower and whatever. We basically went to 5 days.
5 days.
5 days of swimming. We kept a little bit of running in there, but we made it optional. And then kept some biking in there as well
And
for the
training.
low impact stuff. And the strength work didn't go away. So increasing the volume first by number of sessions, and then each one of those sessions started to creep up. And if I'm not mistaken, we got up to maximally almost 25K in the biggest week where we did the
for the week, yes.
yeah. So you basically we did the one, and you can talk about the 100 hundreds, but we did a day of 100 hundreds in a 25-yard pool, which I know my ears were burning that day. And then we did the longer open water on Sunday, which equated to about 5K.
Yep.
And then we had 2 sessions during the week that were 4 to 5, and then the one kind of recovery session that was short. So it was right around 25K in a week, which if you're not training for a swim event, unless you're a professional triathlete, you're not going to get 25K in a week in a pool or in the water in general.
Yeah.
So, given the volumes that we were doing, what was to you, what was the hardest part of the training?
The 25-yard pool. Yeah. I don't know that I've found it to be as challenging as running. And again, I like swimming more than I liked running. So it was a little bit, I had more to look forward to for whatever reason. The 100-100s. Oh my goodness.
Did you have someone do that with you, or
no? I was all by my lonesome.
Ooh, just you and your thoughts.
I had 50 pennies in a cup, and I would put them in every 100 and then pull them out after the first 50. And
it's pretty good because most people can't count when they're swimming anyway. So
that
was some
plan.
way. Yeah,
that was my plan of pennies. What's really funny is at the pool where I was doing it, they were having a kids lesson, kids learning how to swim, and they were running all over. And my biggest fear was that either one of those kids would come and kick my cups or my pennies or start playing with my pennies, and it would have been disaster. Thankfully, no.
Francisco's
wouldn't have been able to recover from that
for hurting a child.
That would not be good. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have anything challenging when it comes to swimming. I really enjoyed even the triangle 500s at Shelby Farms. I honestly enjoyed doing that swim. I don't know if it's I can't say it's soothing, but I had no issues, no stress, and comparing it to everything we did for the running and the injuries that I faced no injuries with all the swimming that we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is quite less impact on the body for sure. Obviously, the big thing we had to make sure was we did a little bit more upper body work, but just monitoring how your shoulders felt, your upper body. It's, you have a pretty clean stroke, so we weren't too worried about, getting problems in the shoulders over rotating or something like that. But we got you up to like this massive weekly volume, eventually you were just like, it was like clockwork, man. You were like, every swim, I was like, I know exactly what pace he's going to swim. right somewhere in the 140s in the pool, and pretty similar in the open water too, which you generally don't see. And then we started seeing pool times come down, and I was like, here we go. This is how we know you're getting fitter. And so open water was just like bam, 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 like low 140s, super easy, like not pushing at all. And then pool times kind of dropped into the 130s and stuff like that. I was like, he's getting fit. And then we did the 5K swim as like a previewer. And then literally the next week, the day when you got out of the water, it feels like.
The next day.
Yeah. What happened, Francisco?
I caught bronchitis.
He got the bronchitis.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
That was 2 weeks out from the race.
So Francisco's what I would consider a pretty even keel guy, pretty mentally strong, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't catch some worry from you that we came this close and got sick. And so, I mean, we saw each other at the pre-swim for Memphis 70.3, and I was like, look, if you can get healthy, keep your upper body loose, and just keep some general activity going, you're going to be fine. Like the body's going to remember what's going on. Don't panic, and went about your business. And your body came around, and a couple days before we got into the pool, everything looked basically the same.
And I was still coughing some in the water.
Okay.
When we did that that swim at Shelby Farms, the 70.3 course, I was still coughing a lot. And it's quite challenging to try to cough and swim and do all that.
yeah.
So through that swim, I was thinking, there's no way.
That was
There's
what,
no,
4 days out? 3 days out?
That was a week out.
It was a
Or
week.
was it a
yeah.
week?
A week
Okay.
out.
Okay.
There is no way I can swim 6 miles in this condition, even if I turn over on my back and float while I'm trying to cough. I was thinking I may have to not even show.
Scrap it.
But yeah, thankfully we're able to pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, it was, at that point, could the lead-in have been a little bit better? Sure. I mean, but stuff like this happens. But the moral of the story here is that you didn't lose fitness over that time.
No.
Like, again, if the worst thing you could have done, like, we wanted you to get healthy, but we didn't like totally come off the gas. We did enough to like keep your body moving and mobile and muscles awake. It was just basically like a bit of an elongated taper, and is what it seemed like, because once you got into the water at the race, you cranking.
Correct.
I mean, there was a little bit of current, but
And I gotta, I gotta give you props for this, because as the athlete, I'm thinking the wheels are coming off. I'm done. Jumping off the second floor. It's over.
Building's on fire, and I'm getting
that's
out.
That's it. I'm out. And it's your words of encouragement that, hey, you haven't lost anything. I don't know that anybody else would have said that. Like I talked earlier about the customer having the support, whether if it's a support at home or support with your teammates or whatever. I don't know that anybody would have said the same, that you're not losing the fitness. I think that was the key for me. The trust that you're right. I'm not losing my fitness. Everybody else would say, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine." That's not enough. At least not for me. What I needed to hear at the time. So yeah, those words is what helped me. Having your coach tell you, you're not losing it. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
we
kept the confidence level up.
we've seen it. I mean, been doing this a while, so we've seen it time and time again. And it's not, I mean, I'm not saying that our athletes tend to get sick 2 weeks out. I'm just saying that it happens. There's a lot of stuff floating around in the air these days. And, it's an unfortunate thing that happens. But that close to the event, when you've put all the work in, it doesn't just like go away in a week.
Correct.
Like, it's not going to, like I said, the worst thing, what'll happen is you'll go into the event feeling really stale, and it's like you're too fresh. But on a long event, I would even bet, had we not done much of anything leading up to that day, you might have felt crappy for the first half an hour. But as soon as your body kind of like realized what you were doing, you'd have been fine. It takes a solid. I mean, it's a solid like 2 week, like they say 5 days is when detraining starts to take place. I think it's a little bit longer, just in my experience. But again, if you can keep things mobile,
Keep moving,
awake, that sort of thing, your fitness is not just going to disappear in a week or two.
And it paid off. I mean, the event went flawlessly for me. I still had a little bit of coughing in the water, but it wasn't severe. The temperature was 75 degrees in the water. No wetsuits, by the way. So that's another rule.
You just ruled out like 90% of triathletes right there.
Yeah, no wetsuits.
It was sounding cool for a minute. Now they're like, yeah, I need that
No
buoyancy.
wetsuits, no speed suits.
Okay.
Just banana hammocks and
That's it.
That's
and
it.
bikinis. That's it. All right, man. Well, I guess the question I have to finish this with is what's next?
Well, this is. It's always for Meg and I. Again, we like to challenge ourselves. Meg has been playing with this idea of she wants to do a Sheehaw challenge. I don't know if you've seen it. It's out there, which is a Ironman distance.
The extreme,
Yes,
Cheehaw
the
extreme. Yeah.
Sheehaw stream. So she's playing with that. I told her I'm out. That's all you.
She does realize she has to swim during that, right? There's swimming
I'll
involved.
crew for her for that race. But I'm looking at the Florida Extreme Challenge, which is a 3-day Ironman-like distance, back to back to back.
It's a big. Our friend Jeff Favor did it last year. Yeah, 3 stages.
Yep.
And the first day is essentially an Ironman. The second day is they get like slightly shorter. But the first 2 days, the runs are both 30K. So they're the same distance. It's basically like you're almost doing like 2.5, 3 Ironmans in 3 days.
In 3 days, yep.
It's a doozy.
Pretty stout.
Yeah. So, hey, we'll see.
Just a fun little weekend.
That's right. Just another weekend.
Just another weekend.
Well, man, we appreciate you coming in and giving your
Thank you.
time
Yep,
and
definitely.
to talk about, your story. We love sharing stories of athletes. And again, I think, for those out there who might be noodling a big challenge, like what would you tell them?
Again, I cannot emphasize enough what it means to have the right support, because you're not just doing it for yourself. Everybody around you has to be in it. I know my work has no clue. The other day, somebody asked me or told me, "Hey, I did a 5K marathon the other day." Like, well, good for you. I'm glad. So
Do they know you're here, Francis?
So I know the support is not at work. I have a support at home, but then I also have a support around my friends and teammates, and I have athlete friends that I hang out with most of the time, and then non-athlete, which are for the off season. But if they're your main area of support, man, they're hard to deal with because they're wanting to stay out every night and do all these things. So support to me is probably the biggest thing. And the other one, you got to love the training. You got to enjoy it. In the minute that you're not enjoying it, back off for a little bit.
Yeah. So find the support team.
Yeah.
That's
Surround yourself with
Yeah.
like-minded people, right?
That's it.
and then you better enjoy the training because
That's it.
you're going to be doing a heck of a lot more
Especially if
than
you're
that.
going long. If you're going long, you better like it.
Going to do a lot more training than racing.
Well, I've enjoyed it. I appreciate letting me be here.
No, we appreciate you sharing your story and getting to talk about, your season this year. So appreciate all of you guys and gals hanging out, listening, watching. We'll catch you guys next time. Adios.
Peace.